Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Every time I say that, I just got a picture of you guys with your palm on your forehead saying, oh, not again. And let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Today's first story comes from Throwaway Pitiful One, who says, wife, female 28, held a talent show at our wedding reception. Her friend who sang networked with a guest who wants to potentially work with her. She has become bitter since. I, male 28, knew her since college, and I'll get that out of the way first. The past few days have shown a different side of her that's a little surprising because Kate is her best friend from college. My wife, Nancy, wanted to do a mini talent show at our reception, and she talked it up beforehand too. She read a poem that she made for the event, and Kate performed a song that she wrote. Long story short, one of the guests who I invited is into producing, and he reached out to her after she performed. They exchanged information, and Kate was really excited. He wanted to network with her following the reception, and she even thanked my wife for hosting the talent show over text. But Nancy became really bitter about it, and that's why I'm writing this. She hasn't responded to Kate's message, and she said she regretted doing the talent show too. She also asked me to block Edward, the producer, on my socials and contacts, and I told her that seemed a bit much. She didn't like my answer and said that I was wrong to not take her side after just getting married, but I told her that she should be happy for her friend. She didn't like that either and vented to someone in our friend group about how Kate was bragging, but some of them disagreed. She said that she didn't want to hang out with them for the time being, and that included me too. Two of her girlfriends even texted me that she was overreacting and that they were also surprised to see her act that way. They also asked if she was okay too. My dad is suggesting counseling and said that asking me to remove friends is an unhealthy way to start a marriage, and I'm honestly more than a little scared. I asked if she'd be open to counseling, but she said there was no need because Kate was her friend first, and I shouldn't choose Kate over her. I just wanted to ask what to do next, and she refused counseling and sees no issue with cutting off our friends. Edit. I want to add that Nancy complained that her poem didn't get as good of a reception as Kate's song. Kate didn't study music in college but practices on the side, and her text was really thankful for the opportunity that the talent show provided. Kate is also engaged to a long-term boyfriend. Now, I found this to be like a really weird reaction from your wife. You know, the talent show is something that she came up with. She wanted it. And just the way it feels as I was reading this is that your wife wanted it all to go her way, to be like the star of the show, even though, you know, she kind of was at her own wedding anyway. And it just felt like your wife felt like she was upstaged by her friend at her wedding and doesn't like it. And it sounded like the friend was really nice about it, sending a nice text saying thank you and like, you've given me this opportunity now. And, you know, you should be proud of your friend, especially if you're the one who hosted the talent show. You shouldn't feel like you're entitled to win it. And I got to say, this is the first time I've ever heard of a talent show being hosted at a reception. Has anyone else ever heard of this before? But Wonderland Resident 13 says your dad is absolutely right. This isn't a healthy way to start a marriage or a healthy way to act in general. And she should get counseling. But if she refuses, I honestly can't really say what you should do other than keep trying to talk some sense into her. Whatever happens, don't give in to her unreasonable demands. You and your friends haven't done anything wrong, and you shouldn't have to cut them off. I hope he responded saying the fact that the two of her girlfriends even reached out to see if she was okay made me even more concerned too. She doesn't want counseling, and I honestly think it's really petty. Also a little scared that she might cut me off for not agreeing with her the same way she did some of our friends. I don't know why she's so hung up about her best friend. Ornery Stick says your wife is insecure and jealous of her friend. She needs to grow up and start supporting her friend Kate like any good friend should. What woman friend wouldn't be thrilled for their friend to be given this opportunity? Your wife needs a reality check and it's not all about her. Good luck to your marriage. OK Strategy says, what a strange reaction. The talent show was literally her idea. It sounds like she's just jealous and felt that her friend outshined her on her wedding day, but that's not the friend or the producer's fault. Definitely don't cut out your friends. It's not healthy or reasonable for your wife to request that. Are there any other friends or loved ones she might listen to about this? Yeah, and that's a good point. I don't think I said that in my comment. I don't think you should be cutting out your friends. And I think, like your dad said, it is very unhealthy to be expecting you to do that. Dart says, what the heck? Held a talent show at your wedding. I can't tell if you're kind of being sarcastic. So I get your wife wrote a poem and read it. That could be nice. Was the friends singing pre-arranged? Did other people do things? Was this all spontaneous or planned? Did your wife know there was some sort of producer going to be there? Either way, she's just upset her friend got singled out for talent versus her poem, and now she wants you to be mad at friend and cut ties with your other friends over this. Sounds like there's still time for a legal annulment. Mountain Monitor 262 says your wife needs counseling. If she wants to read a poem, then she didn't need to make a whole talent show production. She made a poor decision and now causing everyone to pay the price for it. She must have had resentment and jealousy of her best friend built up for a long time. Having a wedding one-upped her only to have that thunder stolen too. Your wife needs to get called out for it if she refuses counseling. And one more from AFAF who says this all seems very odd. Your wife's reasoning for deflecting counseling makes no sense, and your dad is right. Cutting off friends is a bad idea. You have to seriously consider this whole thing, OP. It might be worth an ultimatum. Counseling or annulment. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I just don't understand where your wife is coming from. OP responded saying Nancy said that it should be easy when we talked, that we weren't fighting because her issues were with Kate and not me. All I had to do was block our friend group because 2 girlfriends who she vented to called her bitter. For the time being, along with a producer, if she was to go to the vacation we planned. I refused, then she calls me the bad guy for being friends with the producer. Now she and her parents ghost, but I don't know if she'll even respond to an annulment message, but we will send it. I don't know if that's a little hint of where we're going with the update. So the update says, it's been a little over 2 weeks since my first post, and I've had some time to try and process. A lot of it still feels surreal, having known her since my early 20s and the 180 after the wedding. Want to address a few things that were asked in my first post before getting to the update. Nancy and Kate were not the only ones who performed in the talent show. During planning, Nancy said she wanted to showcase her friends and how awesome and proud she was to have them. She also said it was a bonding thing between her girlfriends from our friend group, and the girls were the only ones who performed. However, given her post-reception 180, it really surprised me in comparison to her pre-talent show mindset. A few people commented that she didn't need to have a talent show to read the poem she made for the wedding. She could have just read it at any time as the bride. The update. The reason I'm writing this post is because of something else that came up and led to a conversation. We had a vacation coming up, but she no longer wants to go on it. In the time since my first post, she's continued to have random mood swings due to thinking about Kate. Sometimes that's venting about how Kate would have nothing without her, or getting really quiet and distant even while eating. She's also still upset at her girlfriends who have vented to about Kate. But when they disagreed and called her out for being bitter over a talent show, no one forced her to have. She told me to cut off our friend group along with blocking the producer and girlfriends too. When I disagreed, she became distant and said I was choosing them over her. My dad suggested counseling and talking to her again because asking me to cut off friends was an unhealthy start to the relationship. So I talked to her after my first post and asked if she'd be open to it, but she said there was no need because all I had to do was cut them off. She also said I was choosing them over her and that she wouldn't go on our vacation until I did. When I asked her why Kate bothered her so much, she said she tried to publish in the past a novel and didn't get any hand-me-downs then. But when I reminded her that my friend was a producer on the side in his basement, she said I should have known better than to invite him, as if I should have known he would have liked Kate's song. When I told her that I wouldn't block the producer/entire friend group, she said I was entitled like Kate, and that she wanted a break because I didn't care about her. I told her that I love her, but didn't think it was healthy to cut off everyone. I also told her that she should be happy for her friend because Kate was really grateful, but she didn't seem to care. She has since gone to stay with her parents and left some of her things in our apartment. I talked to my dad after she ignored texts and calls for a few days, and he suggested bringing up an annulment because it had gone too far. Her parents have also ignored my calls. I want to clarify Kate's text before I'm done. Kate wasn't arrogant or anything to Nancy. All she did was thank her for putting together the talent show that allowed her to network with a producer after the wedding. She also offered to take her out to lunch as a thanks. There was no arrogance from Kate, and the producer is also engaged, as some people inquired about too. I'm just really surprised and hurt that her bitterness turned me into the bad guy for inviting my producer friend, as if I was supposed to see into the future and not invite him. Edit. Nancy got the idea to make a poem for the reception after watching the poet Amanda Gorman read her works, Inauguration and Super Bowl. She also said that it wasn't out of place for her to read at the reception when most people watching football aren't smart enough to appreciate poetry. And there was a couple of extra comments to the update that I just wanted to respond to on that one. So Malinier says, yes, this is exactly what I thought, and I can understand her feelings but not her actions. She was probably really proud of that poem, and she had probably imagined people loving it and getting more praise than she did. She probably only thought of the talent show to have an excuse to read it. And a dream is to write, it seems to me. When you build something up in your mind like that, it can be quite upsetting when something different happens. Kate stole her spotlight, and somehow it seems she's now blaming her own failings at Kate because the talent show took Kate closer to her dreams. That's the part that seems really unhealthy to me, especially since it's been some time and she's still feeling the same way. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. Have you ever heard of a talent show going on at a wedding reception or anything like that? How would you react if you was OP in the situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. And our next story I spotted, I think it might be a little bit of neighbor drama going on, so no reference for you who says, am I the arsehole for taking all of my neighbor's plants? I live next to a couple whom I'm friendly with, but not much past how are you, and chat about things in the neighborhood. Last week I was out for a morning walk and noticed Amber lugging a butt ton of plants from her backyard to her porch. She said hello, so I stopped by to chat and see if she needed help. Looked like she was starting her own landscaping company. Turns out she finally felt inspired to work on the new garden she'd been planning for months. She ripped out everything she currently had, was going to put it in on the curb as freebies. I've always wanted to turn my lawn into a nice garden, so I felt like I struck gold. I offered to pay her because there was a substantial amount of shrubbery, but she refused. I wheelbarrowed everything over to my backyard, brought her some pastries as a thank you, offered cash again or to help her with a new garden. She refused, and that was that. I spent the weekend with my boyfriend replanting everything, and our backyard looks great. Until I get a knock on my door yesterday from her husband. Turns out he said she gave permission for him to tell me this. She struggles with bipolar and was going through a manic episode. There is no new garden, that she's been plotting for months, just a bipolar-induced attack on their backyard that she now regrets. She's too embarrassed to talk to me herself. I get it, I struggle with depression up the arsehole, and the fewer people I have to explain myself to, the better. But she wants her plants back. Apparently that garden was her baby, and in a fit of mania, she destroyed it. I'm sad for her because shitty decisions when you're in the mental toilet suck, but like, everything is already planted in my backyard, and I'm not willing to put in the effort to dig everything up. It'll look awful. And yeah, that's what they are dealing with now, but it's not my fault. I nicely told him pretty much that, and he just said okay and left. Now when I see them, they completely ignore me. I've crossed paths with them 3 times since, and her husband waved, but she didn't even look at me. I saw them taking soil and compost bags out of their car today, and Amber just looked really upset and not at all excited to be working on a new garden. My boyfriend thinks I should offer to give at least some of them back because I'm not exaggerating. She gave me a ton of plants. I just don't want her to think she can be rude to me after a mistake and then get what she wants. Am I the arsehole? And we do have a small edit which responds to the comments in a moment. To me, it sounds like she's just hugely upset about what happened and potentially embarrassed as well. And I totally get how it would put OP sort of in a position having to dig up all those plants again and, ruining their own garden for this. And let's face it, depending on the type of plant, of course, or green finger mark coming out here, there's a fair chance these plants won't survive another move like that. Little disclaimer though, I'm no expert on that. I've just known in the past when I've moved plants and stuff around in the garden, sometimes I've killed them. And so I'm going to have to come at this, and this will be from my point of view and how I feel like if I put myself in that situation. Someone come up to the door and they explain, she was having a manic episode. I think I'd have a lot of empathy for that situation, and I'd want a way that we could fix it for the both of us. Like I said, I don't think digging up all the plants and moving them back over is the right way to go about it, because you're potentially just killing the plants anyway. Perhaps finding the hardiest of plants and then transferring those back across, and then with the money that you was offering to buy, replace those in your garden, or just going over there and talking to them and saying, you really do empathize with their situation and you would love to help them redo their garden and offer that money that you was going to last time. Just popping across, showing a bit of empathy. They're not bad people. Obviously, you don't have to. Other people's mental health issues are not your struggle, but just showing empathy towards the situation, a little bit of human understanding might build the bond with a neighbor. Like you said, you had a bit of one before it happened, and there's a potential to build on that. And perhaps, if you're willing, understand maybe a bit what she's going through at the same time. Gotta say, it made me really sad for that person to, that she's really embarrassed to come over and talk about what happened. It just shows the struggle that she's going through. Halgan says, not the arsehole, you offered something twice and she refused. If they want the plants back, they should have been the one to offer to arrange your garden if they want it all to be dug around. I get it that she has episodes, but it's not your duty to guess if she's having one every time you have an interaction. It's more insensitive if you're going to assume that she isn't all up there that day. Cat Herder says, I was all very not the arsehole until you pulled the rude card. She's not being rude. She's embarrassed and is now trying to reconstruct what she destroyed. She's gutted. She feels like shit. And while you're under no obligation to return the plants, it wouldn't have been unreasonable to meet her in the middle and let her reclaim her most precious ones. You all might have even collaborated on your garden, and you could have had a good gardening ally. You aren't technically in the wrong, but your attitude regarding what actually happened sucks. Soft, you're the arsehole for making this about you. Coco Sneeze says, you're the arsehole. I was wavering between no one's an arsehole here and you're the arsehole, but this sealed it for me. I just don't want her to think she can be rude to me after a mistake and then get what she wants. It says, lady, you just got a ton of free plants from your neighbor because she was in the middle of a manic bipolar episode. She's not being rude. She's embarrassed and hurt. Her not being chipper and friendly with you doesn't translate to rude. If you want a decent relationship with her, go buy a nice houseplant and some pastries and go and give them to her and offer again to pay for the plants. Columbo's Peugeot says, sure. If she put them on the curb and a stranger took them, then she would be out of luck. However, she gave them to you and now she has to look at them in your yard every day. She isn't being rude to you. She's embarrassed. My friend is bipolar and it's really an awful, awful illness. I think it would be better to have some compassion for her and her husband and give the plants back. You could tell the husband that they can do the digging work and also require them to repair the grass. I was on the fence about judgment, but your final sentence tells me you're the arsehole. History Buff says, I want you to think about something. Imagine you get so depressed, like the deep, nothing brings me joy anymore kind of sadness. Then I want you to think of something that makes you happy, maybe a hobby or even a pet. And you look at that in your fit of intense depression and the sight of it hurts you to your core. You could be thinking it's all a waste, it's not good enough, it's a painful reminder of how far you've fallen into depression. You don't want it in your house anymore, so you rip everything out, every single thing that has anything to do with your hobby or pet, and you give it all away to the first person curious enough to ask. You don't stop and think, hey, maybe I should wait and make sure I'm not going to regret this. Maybe I should talk to someone before making this decision. You don't stop and think because you're hurting so much. It's out of the house, it's gone. Yet a few days later you wake up and feel more lively, more light and more motivated than before. And then you realize that you've just destroyed something that genuinely did bring you joy. You are mortified, you're upset, and you feel as if you've taken so many steps backwards from progress. I don't know about you, but I'd do anything to make someone feel that way better. Even if it means digging out my garden or sharing the hobby supplies that I have, because I know how miserable it can feel. I'm sure you do as well. You're the arsehole. Then OP's edit says, read through the business you all sent me and I've decided I'm going to give her a $100 gift card to our local nursery and see if she wants help planting. Someone made a great point that these plants will likely be dead within a week, lol, especially if they get moved again. And now I'm going to turn it to you guys. How would you react if you was in the same situation as OP? Would you consider giving those plants back? Would you not? Would you find a different solution? Or would you think, no, it's not my responsibility? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, support and time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today'll be a good day. Okay, I know that today'll be a good day.